It's the video you've all been waiting for. Except it's not just a video. It's an entire series. Welcome to the first episode of Moon Cult 101. What is the moon cult? It's basically just a blanket term for a bunch of different crazy shit that Fiona and I do. And in this series, I will be covering the following areas. Let's kick things off with a little bit of moon cult history. I personally, just as a very well-adjusted, well-rounded individual, have always been into witchy things and the possibility of magic and the significance behind different beliefs and superstitions, as well as the idea that it's possible to will things into existence. I also have said at several different points that I genuinely believe at some point I'll be able to shoot lightning out my hands. That's not a moon cult thing. That's just me. Moving slightly away from that, I'm also very into self-improvement, which I think is more evident on my blog, madamcgowan.com, go check it out, and the ways that you can improve your life on an actual psychological level. I've also always had very, very strong instincts, and I've always paid a lot of attention to them. I've got a lot of weird history in my family of like occult-related things and like different kinds of predictions, and like on the Hungarian side and the Australian side. I won't get into that now, that could be a video on its own. I'm not saying that I'm necessarily a gift from the great beyond, but I did very much predict my friend's completely unplanned pregnancy. So, I don't fuck about. You take instincts, you take the occult, you take psychology, you mash them together, and you get the moon cult. In terms of the history of the moon cult itself, Fiona and I believe, started tracking the moon towards the end of 2014, once we realized that a lot of different events in our lives were lining up with the moon cycle. It's what anybody would have done. I was very, very aware of the full moons because I started realizing that I felt like strangely powerful certain nights, and every time I looked it was a full moon and I was like, damn, okay. And then I've talked about the thunder moon before. I'll try and find a video where I talk about it and link that down below. But as soon as I became aware of the Capricorn thunder moon, I was like, this is something that we need to look into. So towards the end of 2014 we started tracking the moon. The night before the 1st of September that year, we made our first vision boards, and everything just kind of spiraled from there. I know for a fact that by May 2015, we were actively tracking the planets, and by July, I was like full-blown batshit. Like by July, I was using positive visualization, I was using the law of attraction, I had tarot cards in the mix. By July 2015, the moon cult was in full effect, and it was essentially in its current form. In its current form, I would say that the moon cult exists partially as a way of getting things that you want, but primarily as a source of guidance. The two main attributes that you must possess in order to be a fully functioning member of the moon cult are belief and self-awareness. Belief is pretty self-explanatory. You need to believe in it or it straight up isn't gonna work. This is true case by case and overall. And that can be a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, like how if you want something to be true, you're probably gonna believe it. But there's no way for me to talk about the moon cult without sounding fucking crazy. I've accepted that, you've accepted that, we're gonna move on. So in my mind, the way that the moon cult works is very energy based. So if I'm giving a lot of the right kind of energy to, for example, tarot cards, then the tarot cards, or whatever controls them, I just refer to the universe all the time. So if the universe is like using the tarot cards to communicate a message to me, if I'm putting a lot of like really concentrated positive energy into the tarot cards, the universe can then use that energy to give something back to me. Similarly, if I'm putting absolutely no energy into something, there's nothing for the universe to work with, so I'm not gonna get anything back, right? If you've looked into the law of attraction at all, it is all about just like complete belief that it's gonna work. So if I'm doing positive visualization and I'm not really invested in it, then it's not gonna work. But if I put like 100% of my energy and my belief into it, then I've had some freaky, freaky, freaky results. So essentially, you just need to let go of that voice in your head that says you're insane. Full disclosure, I've had to like stop 4 times filming this video to go outside and just like sweat. It is about 1 billion degrees right now. The reason my curtains aren't open is because if I open them, I will melt. Things I do for my cult, am I right? The second attribute that you need is self-awareness, and self-awareness is important on two different levels. First of all, you need to be self-aware in that you need to be aware that what you're doing is fucking weird. Second of all, you need to be self-aware in that you need to be in touch with your own instincts, because the basis around which everything in the moon cult revolves is gut feeling, instinct, and harnessing your own power. Also the moon. But mainly you, because the moon exists for everyone, but it doesn't work for everyone. I will also say that perhaps the most important message and overall philosophy of the moon cult is to approach it with good intentions. I know that's a bit weird coming from a massive bitch, but you really do just need to focus positively on yourself rather than negatively on anyone else, because that is just never ever gonna go well. If you do want to bring someone else down, which I'm sure we all do at one point or another unless you're some kind of angelic freak, do it by improving yourself. And like, you can improve yourself tactically. I'm not saying like, just let them live their life. No, you can improve yourself tactically. Just never actively use the occult to negatively impact someone else, because just by nature, like, that is gonna come back on you. And you do not want that to happen. So that's the basic outline and a rough history of the moon cult. And now I would like to finish with a few disclaimers. Next week's video about the planets and the moon is the most complicated one out of the bunch, I think. So hang in there. It gets easier. Number 2, this series is just the tip of the iceberg. If I were going to get into the moon cult in depth, it would take hours, and that is what the Q&A is for. So if at any point during this series you think of a question, just leave it in the comments and Fiona and I will answer it for you. Number 3, the moon cult is always growing, changing, and developing. So this really is just a basic outline of what we have going on at the moment. Number 4, it is entirely what you make of it. Like I said, you get out what you put in. And number 5, if the witch trials ever come back, this has all been a joke.